Hi everyone, very good evening and welcome back to Crack Grade B. So in this particular session, we are going to go ahead. We have talked already about the offer and acceptance, right? Both the things have been covered and now we'll be moving on to our next topic. That is, let's see this. Before that, there is a little question for your understanding basis, right? So this is, can an acceptor revoke the acceptance after they have mailed the letter of acceptance? So yes, see, for acceptor, there are different rules. Okay, so acceptor can revoke the offer until the communication is complete against the said acceptor. And when the communication is complete for the acceptor, when the letter reaches till the to the offerer, right? तो जब तक ऑफरर के पास लेटर नहीं पहुंच जाता, communication of the acceptance is not complete and before that he can revoke his acceptance. अगर उसको मना करना है तो वो पहले ही मना कर सकता है जब तक कि लेटर ऑफरर के पास ना पहुंचे, ठीक है, तब तक वो मना कर सकते हैं. So this is what has been told over here. Now we shall move on to our next topic, that is consideration. So we have in previous lectures, in one of the lectures we discussed about offer, right? In the last lecture we discussed about the acceptance and today we will be discussing about the consideration. I guess I shall increase brightness a little bit. Just wait. Yes. So consideration is meanings and definitions, legal rules, rules of no consideration, no contract, right? These are the things that we shall be discussing. Doctrine of privity of contract. These are the four things that we will be understanding and talking about in consideration. Let's just see this. So as per section 2D of Indian Contract Act, again the section has came, so you have to remember it, okay? So as per section 2D of Indian Contract Act, consideration is defined as follows, where at the desire of the promisor, the promisee or any other person has done or abstained from doing or abstains from doing any other particular task, it is called as consideration. Basically, if I have to define it in a very easy way, consideration means something in return. What you are doing in return. So somebody is giving you a car. What you are doing in return? You are giving the money. Okay. So somebody is giving you the money. What you are giving in return? So that is your car. Consideration means both the parties have to do something in return for each other, and your consideration should be a valid consideration for being acceptable consideration. Okay, so this is a complex sentence. Let's break it down. See, so if at the desire of the promisor, if promisee does something or abstains from doing something. The example for both the things I have told you, right? Does something means if the promisor is saying that I will be giving you my car and you shall sell your plot of land to me. So now he is demanding plot of land from you, right? So this is a positive thing. You have to do something. So if you have done something, that is also a consideration. If you have abstained from doing something, what is abstinence from doing something? See, it means that you have said ki no, I am not going to do this particular thing for you. In this particular case, I gave you the example of medical store, if you remember. Right? I already have a medical store and there was a person who was opening medical store just in front of my shop. So I asked him that please do not open your shop over here because इससे क्या होगा, मेरे business का नुकसान होगा. So I said no, please do not open your shop over here. So in this particular situation, the other person is abstaining from doing something. He is not doing a task which I told him not to do. Okay, so both of them will be considered as consideration. Okay, then this act of doing or abstinence is called as consideration. Now it has two aspects, either doing something or abstaining from doing something, right? This is positive when you are performing something, and this is negative, means action inaction. यहाँ पे आपको कुछ ना करने के लिए बोला जा रहा है और यहाँ आपको कुछ करने के लिए बोला जा रहा है. So this is how both these things are different from each other. Now first let us see example 1. This is for doing something. So Peter and John, they enter into a contract where Peter promises to deliver 15 curtains to John in 1 month's time. Okay. Also, John promises to pay Peter amount of 3,000 on delivery. In this contract, John promises to pay 3,000 on delivery is the consideration for the Peter's promise. So here, when John is saying that I am going to give you 2,000 or 3,000 rupees on delivery, he is saying that I am going to pay you. Now, this payment is considered as what? This is considered as the consideration. Okay. Now, example 2 is not doing something. So, Peter has taken a loan from his friend. However, he has not repaid the loan yet. What John has promised? John has promised, I'll not file a case against you if you promise to repay the loan within a week. This is a new offer, right? ये एक नया offer है where John is promising कि if you are going to pay me my amount within a week, that means if you'll pay within a week, I'm not going to file a case against you. ठीक, अगर आप ऐसा कर दोगे तो मैं आपके अगेंस्ट एक केस फाइल नहीं करूंगा. So this is what has been told over here. In this case, abstinence on the part of John is due to the consideration of Peter's promise for the payment of loan. What Peter is going to perform? He is going to repay the loan. And what John is going to do? John is saying that I'll not file a case against you. So this is how both of them are doing something for each other. Now doing something can be in positive sense and can be in negative sense. कुछ ना करना भी तो एक कला है, राइट? सो उसी कला के लिए यहाँ पे इनको बोला जा रहा है. नाउ आगे देखते हैं रूल्स रिगार्डिंग कंसिडरेशन. First, let's read a summary of this and then we'll be discussing them in detail. So it must move, consideration must move at the desire of the promisor. Now desire of the promisor का क्या मतलब होता है? Understand this very very clearly. I am selling my car, और चलो कार वाला example बहुत बार ले लिया है, so let's remove it. Let's bring out land. Okay, I want to sell my land. So I asked a person whether would you like to buy my land. So he said कि yes, I will buy it, but for 4 lakh rupees. So I said no, I am going to sell my land for 10 lakh rupees. So in this particular situation, consideration will be the thing that an offerer is demanding. ठीक है, मैं जो demand कर रही हूँ, that is the consideration. What other person is offering, that is not relevant. Okay, what offerer means the person who is giving the offer. I am saying that I want to sell my land. Okay, so now I will decide the price what I want in return. This is what has been said over here, that consideration shall move at the desire of the promisor. Promisor or offerer, one and the same thing. Next we have, it may move from promisee or any other person. That means who can give you the consideration. I want to sell my land. I told the person that I am going to sell my land for 10 lakh rupees. He said, okay, I am going to purchase it. Now who's going to pay me 10 lakh rupees? Either he will pay or some other person on his behalf will pay, right? So this is what has been told over here. Next is, it may be an act, abstinence or forbearance. Positive thing भी हो सकता है, एब्स्टिनेंस भी हो सकता है और फोरबियरेंस। फोरबियरेंस और एब्स्टिनेंस का मतलब क्या होता है? You say yes to do something, you say no to do something. Right now we just understood what is the positive and the negative kind of consideration, right? What is action, what is inaction, both kind of things we have seen. Next is it need not be adequate. Adequacy, inadequacy, like if you ever have read income tax act, वहाँ पे ये बहुत ज़्यादा use आता है adequacy word, that the consideration should be adequate. Now for suppose I'll tell you an example. We are talking about sale of a land. I said that 10 lakh rupees I demand for that particular land. The other person is ready to pay. Now the contract is good enough. For Indian Contract Act, ये contract एकदम good to go है. But income tax वाले आ जाएंगे बीच में. They are going to say, no, this is not correct. Stamp duty value is something else and you are paying, your sale value is way too less. So consideration adequate है या नहीं, that is for the Income Tax Act and the other act. कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट इज नॉट कंसर्न विद इट. कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट को कोई मतलब नहीं है, बस कुछ होना चाहिए रिटर्न में, चाहे जो भी हो. ओके, देयर शुड बी समथिंग इन रिटर्न, वॉट एवर इट माइट बी. इट could be adequate, it could not be adequate. Okay, both the things are good enough for contract act. Next is, it must be real and not illusory. No need to explain, self-explanatory. Consideration should be something real and something that has some value in it. Okay, it must be something which the promisor is not already bound to do. Okay, now for example, there is a person, right? He is facing threat on his life. There are some people who are threatening him and he is very afraid. तो वो क्या है कि अब कोई पर्सन डरा हुआ होगा, what he is going to do? He is going to approach police, right? So he goes to the police and he asks a police man that I am going to pay you 30,000 rupees, but you have to provide me safety. Now this is not something that you can offer to the policeman. Why? Because why policeman is there? It is their duty to protect citizens, right? You need not pay them an amount for doing their duty. So this is what has been said, that it must be something which the promisor is not already bound to do. ठीक है, उसको फिर हम वैलिड नहीं मानेंगे. It must not be illegal, immoral or opposed to public policy. You are doing a contract, someone is doing a contract for the sale of drugs. Okay, someone is doing the contract for human trafficking. Are these contract valid? Absolutely no. ठीक है, ये बिल्कुल valid नहीं है. These are immoral, these are against the public policy and hence not acceptable in any case. So these are the legal rules regarding the consideration. Now we shall see one by one the explanation of all of these. See, as per section 2D of Indian Contract Act, the following features are essential for a valid consideration. So consideration must move at the desire of the promisor. Number one thing, consideration can be offered by the promisee or a third party only at the request or desire of the promisor. If an action is initiated at the desire of third party, it is not a consideration. What promisor wants, this is important for us. That will be considered as a consideration, right? Not something which a third party wants, not relevant for us, not at all, right? We want to only focus on what promisor wants. Peter is going back home from work. On his way, he sees that his neighbor John's house is on fire. He immediately arranges for a water hose and manages to douse the fire. Now, Peter cannot claim any reward for his effort. Please focus on to this, because it was voluntary act and was not done at the desire of the John. John ने उसको ऐसा करने के लिए कहा नहीं था. Now common sense says कि अरे यार इतना अच्छा काम किया है, कुछ तो रिवॉर्ड देना ही चाहिए, राइट? कुछ तो रिवॉर्ड होना ही चाहिए. This is what our common sense says, but contract act doesn't accept it. For voluntary acts, if you cannot demand something, if the other person would like to give you, he can, but you cannot demand, right? Here, the person whose house was on fire, he did not ask you specifically to douse the fire or to what you can say, water the fire, right? So in this particular situation, if you have done this voluntary act on your own, this is up to you. Next is consideration may move from the promisee to any other person. Okay, so मतलब आ कहाँ से सकती है consideration, who can give the consideration, that is all we need to say over here. So as per section 2D of Indian Contract Act, it explicitly states that promisee or any other person, this means that in India consideration may move from promisee to any other person. However, it is important to note that there can be stranger to consideration but not a stranger to contract. अब देखो यहाँ पे क्या बात हो रही है. There can be a stranger to consideration. For example, A and B. This is the contract of sale of land, right? A is giving the land to B. B shall give the money, right? This is the consideration for this contract of sale. But here B says that I'm not going to give you the money. My son, or let's say some other person, C is going to give you the money. So money is coming from C to A. Now we shall understand two things over here. First of all, who are the two parties? A and B are the two parties. Who is C? C is third party. Third party means he is not a party to the contract. Number one. So he is a stranger to contract, right? He cannot, see, in this particular situation, can he claim certain rights and liabilities against A and B? Can he file a case against A? The answer is no, he cannot. Whatever relationship he might be having with B, that is separate on his own. But in this contract, he has got no role to play. Okay, so in a contract, when we are saying that there cannot be a stranger to contract, we mean to say that we cannot give a right to a third person in contract. ठीक है, हम किसी भी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में किसी थर्ड पर्सन को राइट्स नहीं दे सकते. कल को कोई भी उठ के चला आएगा एंड ही इज गोइंग टू फाइल द केस, सो दैट इज नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल. ओके, नॉट एक्सेप्टेबल. ओनली द पार्टीज हु आर parties to the contract, they can file case against each other, right? They can decide rights and liabilities and all such that. Now, but there can be stranger to consideration. Stranger to consideration means this person can give consideration to A. Why he is giving consideration to A? Because B has asked him to do so. So there can be stranger to consideration. That means promisor can receive the consideration from a third party, but third party does not get any right in relation to filing on any case related to this particular contract. ठीक है, ये जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट है, राइट्स एंड लाइबिलिटीज आर लिमिटेड टू दीज टू पर्टिकुलर पार्टीज एंड नॉट टू एनी थर्ड पर्सन. सो आई होप यू अंडरस्टैंड दिस. So Peter gifted his son Oliver an apartment in the city with the condition that he pays a fixed amount of money to his uncle John every year. So on the same day, Oliver executed a deed to pay a fixed amount of money to John every year. However, Oliver failed to pay and John filed a suit for recovery. Oliver pleaded that he was not liable since no consideration had moved from John. However, court held that the words promisee or any other person and allowed John to maintain his suit for recovery. Now, in this particular case, see over here, what did he say? there are two parties, Peter and Oliver. Okay, Peter and Oliver. So Peter said that I'm going to give you a apartment, right? Peter gave him a property. But he needed a consideration for this. He is giving the apartment and he needs consideration for this, right? But he said that instead of giving me consideration, you can give the consideration to your uncle John. Please pay a fixed amount to him, right? So that's what we studied in the earlier paragraph, where we said that there can be a party, there can be a stranger to consideration. Okay? Consideration may flow from promisee or any third person. Basically, we are saying that consideration can involve a third person. यहाँ पे John is a third person. He is in the receipt of consideration because somebody else has done something, right? Here the Oliver said that he is a third party and he is not eligible to file a case onto me. Court said he can file. देखो, being a third person, he cannot file case on other matters of the contract. He cannot, right? Because they cannot be a stranger to contract. As a stranger, you cannot file case related to a contract for other terms and conditions. But for consideration, there can be a stranger. Consideration के case में stranger हो सकता है, and that is why the claim of John is maintainable. Okay? Now next is consideration could be past, present or future. Although this is self-explanatory, but we are going to see this one by one. What is known as the past consideration? So since consideration is the price of promise. Price of promise means, suppose somebody has given me I was suffering from a bad time, okay, and somebody gave me 6 lakh rupees as a whatever you can say. He gave me 6 lakh rupees. Now after some time, I decided that I am going to give him my plot of land, okay, because I cannot repay the 6 lakh rupees, so I am giving my plot of land. So the 6 lakh rupees that he paid me, it is what? It is past consideration. इसको क्या बोल सकते हैं हम? Past consideration. Fine. So since consideration is the price of promise, it is normally given to induce the promise, right? However, it can be given before the promise is made by the promiser. See, in Indian law, past consideration is good consideration if it was given at the desire of the promiser. Peter employs John to work on his field during the months of agricultural harvesting. He promises to pay John an amount of 5,000 for his services when he sows the new crop in the fields. The services of the John in the past constitutes a valid consideration. See, services has been provided earlier and consideration has been paid later. So past consideration means the act done in past time is valid as a consideration. अब पैसे तो देंगे ही ना, चाहे बंदे ने कल परसों काम किया हो, आगे काम करने वाला हो या आज काम कर रहा हो. You have to give something, okay? But here you need to remember one thing. Consideration shall always flow at the desire of promiser. What promiser wants as a consideration, you shall give that. अब यहाँ पे if John is okay with 5,000 rupees as an compensation for his services, then good to go. Okay. Next is present consideration. So in this particular situation, both the tasks they happen simultaneously. Simultaneously का क्या मतलब, जैसे एक हाथ पे बंदा काम कर रहा है और दूसरे हाथ पे जो है उसको कंसिडरेशन मिल रही है at the same moment of time, right? Both the parties are doing for each other something in return. So this is what called as the present consideration. If the promise and consideration take place simultaneously, then it is present or executed consideration. On spot काम हो जाता है. Peter is saying that you come to field, work in the day and then in the evening take your payment. So on the spot payment is done for the services that has been provided by the John. John बेचारे ने जो भी काम किया उसको उसी दिन उसके काम का पैसा मिल गया. This is what present consideration, right? And then we have future consideration. Future consideration का मतलब क्या? जॉन के पास ऑलरेडी बहुत काम है. ओके, पीटर आस्क्स हिम टू कम एंड वर्क ऑन हिज फील्ड्स. John says that pay me 10,000 rupees in advance and after that I am going to come. So this is what? This is future consideration. ठीक है? So when the consideration for a promise moves after contract is formed, it is a future or executor, right? It is also valid if it depends on the conditions. Next, see, whatever you are giving as consideration, it must have value in the eyes of law. लॉ को ऐसा लगना चाहिए कि हाँ भाई जो तुम दे रहे हो उसकी कुछ वैल्यू, कीमत कुछ तो है, कुछ तो एग्जिस्टेंस हो. अब ऐसा नहीं कि आप कुछ ऐसे सड़क पे पड़ा हुआ कुछ भी पत्थर उठा के दे दो एंड यू कैन से दैट इज कंसिडरेशन. नो, दिस इज नॉट राइट, बिकॉज दिस डजंट हैव एनी वैल्यू एंड द पीपल हु आर सिटिंग इन लॉ कोर्ट्स दे आर नॉट फूल. So they want कि आप जो भी कुछ दो एटलीस्ट उसकी कुछ तो कीमत हो. That should have something value attached to it. So while the law allows the parties to decide an adequate consideration, it must be real and should have values in the eyes of law. Okay, we are not going to decide that whether it is inadequate or adequate. ठीक है, suppose for example there's a person who's coming to my house and helping me in the household chores. Okay, so I pay him, let's say I pay him 1000 rupees a month. For example, I pay him 1000 rupees a month, but in the market for the same work the compensation which is being given is 6000 rupees, right? So contract act will not say कि no, your contract is not valid. कॉन्ट्रैक्ट एक्ट को इस बात से कोई मतलब नहीं है whether your consideration is adequate or inadequate, right? They do not go behind adequacy or inadequacy. Their only concern is that there should be some real consideration. Okay, so if I'm paying him 1000 rupees, that is good enough. वो ठीक है, 1000 रुपए दे रही हूँ ना, 1000 रुपए की कुछ तो वैल्यू होती है. So they are okay with it. They are not going behind adequacy and inadequacy. Let us see this. So Peter's wife agrees to withdraw the suit she has filed against him in return for his promise to pay her monthly maintenance amount. Now this is a good consideration, right? Both the things are having some value. So if she's saying that I'm not going to file a case against you. अब देखो, case ना file करना is a good enough consideration, because the one person if she will file the case, it is going to cause a lot of problems to the Peter. There will be financial problems, there will be mental problems as well. Okay, so she's saying I'm not going to file a case, but you have to pay me the monthly compensation. Good enough, there is consideration. Next is, it should be over and above promisor's existing obligation. So if the promisor is already obligated either by his promise or by law to perform or abstain from a certain act, then it is not a good consideration for a promise. So Peter receives a summons from the court to appear before it as a witness for John. कोर्ट का समन आया है. If you are summoned from the court, then it is your legal responsibility that you should go and appear before the court, right, you have to present yourself as a witness. If you are not doing so, you are violating the rules. Okay, so in such a situation, you have been the Peter has been asked by the court to appear as a witness. Now John says to Peter that please appear in the court, I am going to pay you 10,000 rupees. John was afraid that he might appear, he might not appear. So that is why John was luring him that please come to court, please be my witness, and I am going to pay you 10,000 rupees. This is not valid. If tomorrow John doesn't pay 10,000 rupees, then Peter cannot ask for it. ठीक है, अगर कल को John बोलता है कौन से 10,000 रुपए, मैं तो भूल गया. ठीक है, so in such a situation Peter cannot ask for it because Peter was legally liable to do this act. उसको करना ही था ये act, so he cannot demand compensation for that act. Okay, this is the thing that you need to understand. Now next is your consideration cannot be unlawful. Told you, giving drugs in return, giving for counterfeit currency in return, right? Like things like human trafficking or what you can say, this racket of begging, etc. All of such things are what? These are immoral, these are against value of society, they are punishable acts too. So if you are giving consideration in this particular format, it is not at all valid. A consideration that is against the law or public policy is not valid. Peter offers 10,000 to John to beat up his business rival. ठीक है, अपने कॉम्पिटिटर को मारने कूटने के लिए अगर आपने पैसे दिए हैं, so that is not a lawful thing, right? If tomorrow John doesn't pay, the Peter doesn't pays 10,000 rupees to John, John cannot demand it, John cannot go court of law. अब देखो क्या होता है, such kind of contracts obviously they are made under the table. Nobody knows about them, but they are made under the table. One party performs the task, मतलब वो मार वार के आ जाते हैं, and the other party pays them the money. ऐसा है तो ठीक है, वो उनका अपना चल रहा है, right? But problem arises the point when one party doesn't fulfills the obligation. ठीक है, जब एक पार्टी अपनी ऑब्लिगेशन फुलफिल नहीं करती, लाइक इन दिस सिनेरियो, इफ द पर्सन हु हैज प्रॉमिस्ड दैट आई एम गोइंग टू पे यू 10,000 rupees, if he doesn't pays, then there arises a problem. The other party cannot go to court for his rights, because what kind of rights are they? You are performing an illegal activity. आप ऐसा काम कर रहे हो जिसको तो हम हाँ ही नहीं बोलते. So we are not going to provide you any kind of what you can say, relief. Okay, next, no contract, no consideration. So this means with both vice versa as well. Here what do we mean to say? A promise without consideration cannot create a legal obligation. What do we talked about in this? There is offer meets with an acceptance, it becomes a promise meets with a consideration, it becomes an agreement meets with enforceability, it becomes a contract. ये chain हमने पूरी पढ़ी थी. If in this chain anything is missing, then the contract is not going to happen. If the person doesn't gives you offer, then no contract. If you have not accepted and the other person has assumed your acceptance, तब भी ये contract नहीं है. If there is no consideration, then also contract is not there. And if your contract is not enforceable in the court of law, then also there cannot be any contract. मतलब there is a whole chain, right? And if in this chain, if any link is missing, then your contract is not going to happen. So a promise without consideration cannot create a legal obligation. The general rule is that an agreement made without consideration is void. Void मतलब गलत है. We have seen 3 types of contracts. I am going to remind you: valid, void, voidable, right? 3 things. Now please force yourself to remind yourself what was the voidable contract. Voidable contract क्या थे? void contract क्या थे. अच्छा, in this particular scenario we are also going to talk about one more contract that are called as the void ab initio. void ab initio कौन से होते हैं? जो शुरुआत से ही खत्म होते हैं, right? अब void contracts क्या होते हैं? Let me tell you. So in case of void contracts, initially everything is good, right? Initially everything is good, but as contract progresses, if one of the elements goes missing, then contract becomes void. मतलब पहले सब सही था, लेकिन फिर बीच में कुछ अगर एक element missing हो गया, then your contract becomes void. For example, suppose I told that yes, I want to sell my land. The other person said, okay, fine, I am going to purchase it for 10 lakh rupees. We were good to go, right? The contract was made, but on moment, when the moment came, the person said, no, I'm not going to give you any money. So as soon as he said that there is no consideration, the whole contract went for a toss. This contract will now be called as a void contract. मैं क्या बोलूंगी इसको? मैं इसको बोलूंगी void contract. Okay? So this rule is contained in section 25 of Indian Contract Act, which declares that an agreement made without consideration is void. This means consideration is a must in all the cases. हर केस में consideration जरूरी है, but this section provides certain exceptions where agreement is valid even without consideration. Now what are the exceptions to it? Let's just see this. Nature of love and affection, compensation for past voluntary services, promises to pay time barred debt, completed gifts, agency, no consideration is necessary to create agency, remission, receive less than what is due, bailment, giving article to a person, and the contract of guarantee. ठीक है? Now these are some examples where consideration is not necessary. Let us understand this one by one. Number one, we have nature of love and affection. Nature of love and affection means, suppose my mother transfers her property in my name, okay? Will she charge any consideration from me? Obviously not, because she is doing it out of love and affection. ठीक है? So these are the contracts of love and affection, and in this situation there is no need of consideration. मुझे कुछ पे करने की जरूरत नहीं है मेरी माँ को. मेरी माँ अपनी प्रॉपर्टी अगर मेरे नाम ट्रांसफर कर रही हैं तो, okay? So this contract is an exception for the consideration वाला part. Compensation for past voluntary services. So remember, there was a house that was on fire, right? And a person was walking through and he saw that, okay, this house has caught fire, and he came, he doused the fire. Now the other person whose house it was, he is not liable to pay anything, but he was a good man and he thought that this kind man has saved my house and I shall pay him something. ठीक है, मुझे कुछ तो देना चाहिए. So if he is doing something for him, he is paying any amount to him, so in all these situations no consideration is required, because जिस बंदे ने आग रोकी थी उसने तो voluntary act किया था. He did not want anything in return, but still as a owner of house, if you want to give something, then you can give. There is no requirement of consideration in this particular case. Next is promise to pay time barred debt. अब इस एग्जाम्पल में सोचो, I purchased something, I purchased this particular pen from a person, from a seller, right? So I had to pay 2000 rupees for this particular pen. He gave me a credit period of 1 month. He said ki within 1 month please pay me 1000 rupees. I was not able to pay it. ठीक है? I was not able to pay my debt on time. तो अब क्या? After the time has passed, now 1 year has already been passed, and now I have promised him that I will pay your amount now, right? So this is what? Your debt has become time barred. You were not able to pay that debt, and once time has passed, now you are promising that I am going to pay you. So this is also a valid consideration. Next means this is also here. the other person is not doing something for you, only you are promising that I'm going to pay. So this is what you are not receiving any consideration, but you are promising. So this is also an exception. Gifts. So when we gift something to someone, we do not expect something in return, do we? No. Matlab, yeah, let's take it theoretically, but yes, in theory we do. Whenever we are gifting something to someone, we do not accept, we do not want anything in return, or we do not expect anything in return. So in case of gifting also, gifting related contracts also, suppose my sister is getting married, okay, so I would like to gift her a car. So I made a contract regarding this. My sister is not giving me anything, but I'm just giving him as a gift. And apart from sister, there could be anyone as well. It could be my friend or anyone I am gifting, right? So in this particular situation, there need not be any consideration. Agency. Agency means there is an agent who represents you. ठीक है, represents you. So in such a case, you need not to have any particular consideration from the agent. देखो यहाँ क्या होता है, to create a contract of agency, no consideration is needed. But as your contract will progress, right, and the agent will earn the revenue, in such situations there might be need of consideration. ठीक है, तब considerations की जरूरत पड़ सकती है, otherwise there is no need. Next is remission. Receive less than what is due. See, you were liable to pay 50,000 rupees, right? But obviously I'm not able to pay. I do not have enough cash with me or anything. So the other person says that instead of paying me 50,000, give me 45,000 only. So the remission that he has given me of 5,000, right? The deduction he has given me of 5,000, it is what? It is without any consideration. I have not done something to deserve that reduction of 5,000. मैंने कुछ किया है क्या? नहीं, मैंने कुछ भी नहीं किया है. But still I am getting that deduction of 5,000. So this is called as the agency, and this is called as the remission. And under remission there is no need for the consideration, right? Next is the bailment. So creating a contract of bailment, there is no need of consideration. Next is guarantee. Suppose one of my friend, they are purchasing a commercial vehicle, right? They need what? They need my guarantee for that. In such a situation, I'm not charging anything from them, okay? I'm just giving the guarantee and I'm not charging anything. So contract of guarantee also, if there is no consideration that has been paid, then this is also good. See, this happens normally in the friends, acquaintances, etc. People give guarantee on your behalf, but they do not charge anything, right? So all these contracts are there. Now in this particular session, I will keep only up to this much. This is what we need to discuss, and we will be discussing the detailed explanations of those as well. These things that we discussed, right? We are going to discuss that as well, but in our next class. So this is it for this particular class. Thank you so much for joining in.